lot of NFL news, free agency starting, and Mike Tannenbaum at the center of all of it. He works for the mothership, NFL Front Office Insider. You can see him on Get Up, SportsCenter, NFL Live. Mike, thanks for joining us. Why not, if you're the Dolphins, keep Tua on the roster if you're paying him?
Great question. I think, Dan, they're resetting things. It's year one. Let's take the cap charges. Let's eat a lot of the money this year. Some of it's going to go to next year and start fresh. I think it's sending a message about culture and more about the future than, hey, if we win 6 or 7 games or 8 games this year, that doesn't matter. So I understand why they were doing it year one with a new head coach, year one with a new GM.
Are the Dolphins going to be tanking?
I don't know if they're going to be tanking, but I think what's going to be really interesting, Dan, if you and I are having this conversation October and November, there'll be a number of teams that are probably more interested in finishing closer to the top of the draft than to making the playoffs. And I don't know if they're going to have a tanking problem the way the NBA does, but without question, next year's draft is loaded with quarterbacks, and there's going to be a number of teams that may be out of it in the middle of the season. It'll be interesting to see how they comport themselves when we get there.
But Tua, if he signs with the team, he still gets his money from Miami.
That's correct. There's three quarterbacks right now, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, and Tua, that all have massive guarantees from their previous team. All three of those quarterbacks will sign for about $1.3 million this year. So it's not necessarily comparing apples to apples when you talk about Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins or Malik Willis with those other three, because a team is going to see one of those three players as tremendous value.
If you ran the Dolphins, what are you going to do at quarterback position?
I'm probably looking for a bridge quarterback and then looking at next year's draft because it could be historically great. Look, the season hasn't been played yet. We'll see how it goes, but there's a chance for it to be really good. So not just necessarily Miami, Dan, but if I felt like I was a year away or just trying to establish myself, there's over 10 new head coaches. I'm sure a lot of teams are going to have a very similar mindset.
Maxx Crosby, Raiders getting 2 first-round picks from the Ravens. Let me start with the Ravens because I wondered about this last week. Why aren't more teams taking the approach the Rams take? Like Buffalo getting DJ Moore. I mean, I got to be all in because we know that window of opportunity doesn't stay open very long. And the Rams, it feels like for the last decade, have been all in. We don't need our draft picks. We're going to get people who can help us win or at least compete for another Super Bowl. The Ravens went all in with Maxx Crosby, Buffalo with DJ Moore, the Rams, getting McDuffie. Why don't more teams follow that blueprint?
Yeah, I think it's very sound. And in particular, you were asking about Crosby. There's a couple of really interesting things. First of all, he's only 29. He's incredibly productive, and he's exactly what you want for your locker room. He's a force multiplier. He's going to make everybody in that program better. The interesting thing, Dan, that no one's really talked about is Jesse Minter went from this nice, young, ascending coach that will have, a reasonable break-in period to there is no honeymoon. The expectations for a rookie head coach have never been higher. If Lamar's healthy, he's a 2-time MVP. You have one of the 2 or 3 best pass rushers in the league. You have Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, amongst others. This guy's honeymoon's about 10 minutes.
If you ran the Raiders, what do? You got more cap space than anybody. You got 2 first-round picks. We know what you're doing with one of them. What would you be leaning towards if you were running the team?
3 things: offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. I am drafting Mendoza, but I am not playing him. I would have kept Geno Smith, and here's why. If you go back last year, they gave up more sacks than any team. You could look at it from a few different metrics. Don't ruin Fernando Mendoza before he's ready. I think he has a chance on the upside, Dan, to be Matt Ryan, a taller guy, a good arm, a good athlete, not a great athlete. He's going to need a firm pocket. That's something that the Raiders have really struggled with. So why are we in a rush to play him? I would go out and get somebody else to start at least half the year and make sure that your offensive line is settled before you do anything with Mendoza, because you don't want to ruin his career before they have a chance to be good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've been using the Andrew Luck analogy that you had this future Hall of Fame quarterback. You just didn't have a very good offensive line, and it eventually caught up to both the Colts and Andrew Luck. Can you quietly shop the number one pick if you're the Raiders?
Yeah, I'm not so sure they have it. Like just from teams, be it Arizona or the Jets, could just say, hey, run into them at the combine and say, look, we're not negotiating. Tell me what the bill is. Tell me what the price is. Is it 3-1s? Is it 4-1s? Chances are, teams are going to do that because I'm sure they're looking at it at a multi-year sort of view of what we had talked about when you think about Dante Moore next year, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, like on and on and on. There'll probably be, I think, 5 or 6 first-round quarterbacks if they play, reasonably well this year. So I think part of what's going to hurt the Raiders from a leverage standpoint is teams are going to look at next year and say, we'll pay a premium, but we're not going to be unreasonable.
Who had a better week or 10 days? Bills, Ravens, Rams?
I'll go with the Rams. If you and I were running the Chiefs and we were just drafting the players on the Chiefs, clearly Patrick Mahomes is the best player. I'm not so sure that Trent McDuffie isn't 2 or 3 of their best players. He can blitz, he can tackle, he can play man, he can play zone, he can play slot, he can play outside. He's very competitive. There's nothing he doesn't do exceptionally well. And if we look at the Rams and say, like, what was outcome determinative, I would tell you, like, their lack of play at corner. Darius Williams, Emmanuel Forbes, they didn't get the high-level play. And we're going to have to, at some point, cover Jackson Smith and Jigba man-to-man. We're going to have to be able to get off the field on third down. They could do that today. They couldn't do that a week ago. And I was surprised. Look, I know we've seen Kansas City trade L'Jarius Sneed. We've seen them trade Tyreek Hill. I put McDuffie in a different category. I think he's a great young player, and I was surprised that they traded him.
He's Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN NFL front office insider. What do you expect the rest of this week?
I think the quarterbacks are going to be fascinating because I think you put that bucket of 3 in one group. Again, that's Tua, Kyler Murray, and Geno Smith. Those guys are all 1-year deals at $1.3 million. So, that's one bucket. I don't think anybody goes after Daniel Jones because of the durability issue. But let's face it, Dan, the Colts are a little bit exposed. They took a $6 million risk. The transition tag was $6 million less than the franchise tag, understandably. But now let's see what happens with him. And then the other one's going to be Malik Willis. Malik Willis was somebody that hasn't played a lot but got a lot better with Green Bay. And it's going to be fascinating to see where he signs.
What about the Colts going after Kyler Murray?
That's interesting, Dan. They like Riley Leonard. They still have Anthony Richardson. Obviously, they like Daniel Jones. That's why they transitioned him. Look, if you and I were running a team, I would say for $1.3 million, let's go get Kyle Murray. His ceiling is really high. He's only 29 years old. He's played good football, not consistently, but he's put it on tape. And I'm always for, in a capped and constrained system, when you could take calculated risks and get a player that has ability for incredibly, on a $300 million cap, you're essentially paying him nothing at $1.3 million. There's very, very little downside.
Aaron Rodgers only going to have the Steelers as a potential landing spot?
Yeah, I think so. I think Minnesota, if things didn't work out with Murray, that's the only other team. But, let's face it, Dan, he's going to be 43 in December. He's an all-time great, one of the best that ever played, but it's close to the end. And what you worry about there, and I've been around Testaverde at the end, Favre at the end. I work with Dan Marino, talking to him. It's not their arm, Dan. It's their legs and their inability to protect themselves. And, he's going to be 43, father time's undefeated. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I got to take a long, honest, and sober view of, do I really need to do this one more year?
Yeah, I just wonder about landing spots. Even Kirk Cousins, does he look at TV and maybe commit to CBS, but with the caveat or the asterisk of, if somebody calls, I might be leaving. Although I don't know if CBS would do that. I think he had a pretty good debut as an analyst here, but if you're going to replace Matt Ryan, you kind of want to know that guy's going to be there on Sunday when you're doing your broadcast.
Yeah, if I'm Kirk Cousins, I got to be close to the end as well. He's a great dad by all accounts. CBS seems like a pretty good opportunity. We'll see. Sometimes these guys are so competitive, though, it's hard for them to leave. And by the way, a quarterback is going to look at Minnesota and say, I could be coached by Kevin O'Connell. I have Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the game. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. That's a pretty good place to be.
How did Minnesota miss on J.J. McCarthy? Like, it feels like we haven't said the quiet thing out loud yet, but it certainly feels like they realized they made a mistake.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there yet. He started 10 games. I think we got to give him a grade of incomplete. He's incredibly young. I saw him practice probably 6 times at Michigan. He has attributes you can't see. He's a natural leader. He has poise about him. And I think there's too much upside to give up on him. Now, with that said, if we could go get Kyler Murray or Kirk Cousins, I'm going to have a competition. But, we've seen too many guys from Darnold, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, go to their third and fourth team until, quote unquote, the light went on. And to me, we got to remember this, like, worst case scenario is not J.J. McCarthy not working out. It's him working out someplace else.
Yeah, that's true. But it feels like you're either good, really good with your team, or you know that you're going to be a backup quarterback, and then you're going to get your chance again. It feels like there's 2 buckets of quarterbacks. It's that guy's going to bounce around and be Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith, or you are going to get that quarterback who is going to be with your franchise from start to finish.
Yeah, and how about this? Like, I just tweeted this a couple of minutes ago. This is a remarkable statistic. Kyler Murray is the 7th consecutive quarterback drafted first overall that wasn't on the team that drafted him by the age of 30. The last quarterback to be drafted first overall and still be on his team at 30 was Matt Stafford, and he was drafted going back to 2009. So it's really remarkable how hard it is to develop a quarterback. Now, Andrew Luck retired, but yes, 7 quarterbacks in a row didn't make it to age of 30.
You ever get in a shouting match with an agent?
Yeah. more times than I would care to admit.
Can you give me one? You don't have to give names, but what? How loud did it get?
Oh, it got loud. There was one, it was so bad that I actually, not only did I call him to apologize, I wound up hiring his son as an intern because I felt so bad.
We'll be watching. Thank you, Mike. Great to talk to you again.
All right. Appreciate you having me. Thanks, Dan.
Mike Tannenbaum. You can see him on various ESPN programs, Get Up, SportsCenter, NFL Live. And you feel bad. You don't send chocolates. You go, we'll hire your son as an intern.